All right, all right. We are just a few days out from December, and I figured this time that I wouldn't wait until it started to start talking about it because I think that the things or the major astro events that dominate the month of December are already in play. So I want to make this video now, today on December. No, it's not December. It's November 27th. It's 11:46 a.m. in Chicago. Let's see. Capricorn is rising right now. Yes, the moon is in the latter degrees of Aquarius. And this is as good a time as any to do a video. So I want to break down for you the, um, I want to break down for you, and let me open this up just in case y'all decide to start chatting. Hey, Celeste. All right, I figured somebody was here saying hello. So I want to break down for you kind of the major themes, and then I've got my phone here with my little calendar up so that I can go week by week. But the major themes are already in play for December. We have a Mercury retrograde in December that begins in Sagittarius and it ends in Scorpio. Well, it doesn't end, yeah, it does end in Scorpio. Um, the major thing about this, uh-oh, the major thing about this Mercury retrograde is that Mercury will conjunct Saturn 3 times. Okay, the first 2 times are in December, and this last time is in January. Let me see here. Right, January 13th. Okay, so that's the big deal. Mercury is doing its first conjunction today, and that's actually in November. So maybe the second time is in December. Okay, next we have the Sun, Venus, and Saturn all in Sagittarius. This is important because this is the first time that the Sun will conjunct Saturn since Saturn has entered Sidereal Sagittarius, which occurred on September 11th, 2017. Finally, our lunations for the month of December are a full moon in Taurus, that's at the beginning of the month, and in the middle of the month, we have a new moon in Sagittarius right before Christmas. So, let's break down some things week by week. I do want to spend some length of time talking about the sign Sagittarius, talking about Saturn, and also, let's see, does that, no, that doesn't happen until February. I'm sorry, January. I was looking to see if that Venus Saturn conjunction. Oh, actually, wait a minute. Did I miss that? Hold on. I think I missed something really important, guys. I did. Christmas Day, Venus conjunct Saturn and Sagittarius. That's the big deal. But let's go back to the beginning of the month. And I'm just looking down at my phone because on my calendar here, all of the things in purple, dark purple, those are the important astro events each month. This is how I keep track of and know what's occurring each week and each day. Um, so the first week, this is really the first week of December because December 1st is this Friday. So, one of the defining features of the next probably 6 to 8 weeks is that Mercury and Saturn are dancing in this very long conjunction. And this is because Mercury is about to station retrograde. And that actually happens next week, Monday, December 4th. Mercury will station retrograde at 4 degrees sidereal Sagittarius. And this is going to actually happen with Mercury in a pretty tight conjunction to Saturn in Sagittarius. So today, on November 27th, is the first of Mercury and Saturn's conjunction. And this is a big deal because this is kind of like this dominating influence that's happening over the next several weeks, several times, and really kind of defining December for us in our entry into the new year. So, what is Mercury? What is Saturn? What is a conjunction? And what does it mean for it to happen in Sagittarius? Well, I think the bigger part of that whole discussion has to do with the fact that Saturn has just entered sidereal Sagittarius as of October 26th. And this is a 2 years transit. We had Saturn briefly enter Sagittarius at the beginning of this year, 2017, and it stayed there for a few months from January 27th, I believe, until June 20th. So that was really about 6 months. So that's the half of a year, and because Saturn generally spends 2.5 years in each sign, so it's already spent 6 months in Sagittarius, and it will finish its 2 years beginning October 26, 2017, which is already passed, and then it will finish up, I believe, in January of 2019. So Saturn in Sagittarius is answering to Jupiter. Saturn's not in its own sign, so that means its work must consider the agenda of another planet before it gets good and ready to do what it's going to do. Saturn must consider the agenda of Jupiter, and so must Mercury. Right? Mercury and Saturn are both in Sagittarius, so they both must consider the agenda of Jupiter. And Jupiter, as I've talked about before, is about our personal myth and our collective myth. What is the story that we tell ourselves about our lives? And what is the story that we tell ourselves collectively about what is possible for us as a society, what is possible for us socially, culturally, and politically? And with Jupiter and Libra, this has to do with our social contracts. What are the unspoken and spoken rules and agreements that govern how we live together as a society? Okay, and so Saturn, which represents how we build structures, it represents the foundation we are establishing, and it also represents um, adulting for us both individually and collectively. So what does it look like for our society to establish material, um, what's the word I'm looking for, and concrete structures around Jupiter themes, right? So, how are our structures in our society, how are they um, firming themselves? How are they getting more concrete? How are they rooting and grounding themselves? So, we're really combining these themes of growing up in our politics, growing up in our belief systems, and growing up in our ethics. These are all conversations that are really important right now, all across the world, not just in America, but in the UK, as London is doing its Brexit from the European Union. Um, in France, they're also having this conversation about sexual misconduct and the women who have been so courageously coming forward about this. Remember, Jupiter in Libra is all about justice for women, justice by women. So these are all important themes, right? So we're talking about Sagittarius, we're talking about Saturn in Sagittarius, and we're talking about Mercury's long dance with Saturn and Sagittarius and the multiple conjunctions that they'll make, the first of which is today, November 27th, the second of which is on December 6th, and the third is on January 13th, 2018. So Mercury really governs our day-to-day functions. It represents our work, our vocation, and what we do on a day-to-day, whether that's our commute, whether we're sending, receiving messages, communicating with people. It's a very mundane planet in some ways, and that it really represents how we move throughout our day and the basic tasks and functions that are required for us to live. Okay, so when Mercury and Saturn come together, there is this sense that there is a gravity and importance to the work that we're doing on a day to day basis. There's also this sense that we must slow down. There's this sense that we must use our time and energy wisely, right? Saturn represents limitations in the sense of limits in time, limits in energy, limits in resources. It's really the planet of existential crisis, meaning that we're not going to live forever. There's only 24 hours a day. There's only 7 days in a week. We must spend some of that eating. We must spend some of that resting. We must spend some of that tending to our bodies and relationships. And so we cannot spend all of that time working or doing things, trying to accomplish. So Mercury and Saturn coming together is saying, wait a minute, guys. I know you have a lot of things that you want to accomplish. I know that you are overloaded with information. I know that you are overloaded with opportunities. I know that there are so many things on your plate. However, Saturn is here to remind us both in the immediate time frame of this Mercury and Saturn dance that's happening, but also in the long term of Saturn's transit through Sagittarius, that we must commit ourselves to investing our limited time, energy, and resources into those things that have Jupiter, meaning, purpose, that allow us to um, connect with something larger than ourselves, but also things that align with our personal convictions. So if you are feeling like there are a lot of things competing for your attention, if you're feeling overwhelmed with information, if you're feeling like you have a lot of ideas and things that are popping into your head or being thrown at you or put on your plate, and you're trying to figure out how do you prioritize. Well, Jupiter is telling us that it's all about what provides us a deep sense of meaning and purpose. However, the flip side of that is that mature Sagittarius is saying that it's not about the passion that we seek, right? We have this thing of follow your passion. And I think that's really an immature way to define Jupiter and or Sagittarius energy. I think the more mature way to define that energy is not about following our passion, but what is the passion that we bring to things. It's not about waiting for this deep meaning to reveal itself, but it's about what is the meaning and purpose that we bring to everything that we do. The gift of Sagittarius that occurs during the month of December and January sidereally is what is the meaning and purpose that we bring to the things that we do. And this is really important for this Mercury and Saturn conjunction because I think that culturally we tend to place a lot of importance on the passion that we feel and finding and discovering our passion or following our passion. Go after what makes you feel that fire in your belly. However, Saturn is twisting this thing on its head because Saturn is about things that take a long time, things that have a strong foundation. And so this is really important for us collectively because this is a 2 year transit. It's important for us right now because of the immediate transits, and especially if you are going through your Saturn return, if you were born in late December of I want to say 1987 through March of 1990. I think I'm getting that right. I'll tweet out what those dates are of people who are going through their Saturn return. But this is really important because I think we have it wrong. I think we have it backwards that we're supposed to be seeking this passion or that we're supposed to be imbued with some divine or magical sense of purpose. But I think that it's more so about what is the purpose that we bring to the work that we do? What is the meaning that we bring to the task that we have on a day to day basis? And what is the passion and the sense of joy that we bring to even the most mundane tasks that are governed by Mercury? Okay, I know I'm spending a lot of time on that, but I think that that's really important. Okay, what else do we have here? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong list here. Okay, let's see. What else is happening this week? Well, I'll come back to that. Well, no, let's talk about it now. Mars enters Libra on November 29th. I'm counting this as the first week of December because December is Friday. So let's just roll with it, right? Mars enters Libra today. Mars has been in Virgo since September 13th, and now on uh, November 29th, Mars is entering Libra. So it's leaving a sign where it has no special authority or power into a sign where it is in its detriment. Mars is entering to Venus, right? Venus and Mars have opposing tasks and agenda. Venus wants to bring people together, find consensus, cooperate, bond, connect, have fun, experience joy, pleasure, and create. But Mars wants to individuate. It wants to stand out. It wants to enforce its personal boundaries. It wants to win, dominate, be first. It's not concerned with other people. But when Mars is in its detriment in Libra, Mars must consider the agenda of Venus. Mars must consider other people, right? Whenever we have planets in Libra, which includes Jupiter right now, it means that those planets must consider other people. So before you assert your own agenda, before you enforce your personal boundaries, you see the awkwardness of Mars here. Before you stand up for yourself, before you fight, before you win, before you seek to dominate, Mars and Libra is saying you must consider other people. You must consider how it's going to affect others. How does your ambition affect your relationships? How does your drive to enforce your personal boundaries, right? When Mars is in its own sign, like Scorpio or Aries, Mars sometimes can burn bridges. It cannot think about the long term. It cannot think about how one's actions affect relationships or other people on the long term. And sometimes this is a good thing because, say, for example, you're in an abusive situation, you need some Mars in Aries and some Mars in Scorpio, right? You need to be able to assess risk. You need to not think about other people because your personal survival, Aries, is more important than considering a relationship. But right now, with Mars in Libra, it is telling us that it's more important to consider our relationships, consider other people. And I think this is an excellent transit for the time period that we're in. And I think it's an excellent transit given the political climate because I think that we've been in this period of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, being unabashedly and brazenly self serving without considerations of the long term impact of how enforcing our own politics or our beliefs affects other people and our sense of cohesion. Remember, Libra, as the air home of Venus, is all about our social contracts. This is where Jupiter is right now. Mars coming into Libra is building up to a conjunction with Jupiter that's going to occur on January 6, 2018. But before does that, it has a lot of ground to cover because that's not going to occur until 23 degrees of Libra. So until then, this long-term transit of Mars in Libra, which begins November 29th and it ends on, I'm going to tell you really soon, if I can find it, I believe January 16th. So this is a pretty long transit. Mars tends to spend about 6 weeks in a sign, so that's about right. But Mars is telling us that we have to consider other people. We have to think about how our ability to individuate, stand up for ourselves, and further our own agendas affect our relationships, affect our sense of cohesion, and affect the bonds that we form outside of our biological or familial ties. It's a difficult transit. I've got that natally, so yeah, I know how rough that could be, but Mars is telling us that we can may be able to accomplish some of the things that we want to do for ourselves with the assistance and help of other people. So it's really a strategic placement because it's not something, it's not a place where Mars can just do whatever it wants to do. Mars in Libra is very strategic, and there are some who say that this is a great placement for generals, right? You have to engender the cooperation of soldiers if you're going to lead them into battle, right? So um, I think this is also a great transit when it comes to Jupiter and Libra's justice for and by women. I think that's really important because now Mars is saying that women may find a sense of coming together in finding this common enemy of injustice against our personal autonomy of our bodies. So we may see some women banding together and coming together in a way that um, unifies this movement of justice formed by women. And we'll definitely see that in play once Mars meets up with um, Jupiter in Libra. See, all of these planets in Libra are lifting up the agenda of Venus, and Venus represents women. Um, so that brings me to another point too, because Venus today entered Scorpio, and so for most of the month of December, until December 20th, Venus is going to be in Scorpio. This is Venus in the sign of its detriment. So we've got, I wouldn't necessarily call it a mutual reception because technically a mutual reception requires that two planets be in aspect to each other. That means sextile, trine, square, or opposition, right? Um, but they are in each other's sign. Venus is in Mars' sign, and Mars, as of November 29th, will be in Venus's sign. I'm still in the first week. We got to get this thing going. But I think that you guys will find this information applicable and important. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. So Venus is in Scorpio as of yesterday, November 26th, all the way through December. Did I say 18th or 20th? Yes, December 20th. And Venus in Scorpio is answering to Mars. So Venus the one thing I don't like about this placement is that we may see men intimidating women, right? Venus answering to Mars, which means that our drive for coming together for a sense of cohesion, relationships, cooperation, love, sex, joy, pleasure, creativity, and Venus represents women, is answering to Mars. So there may be some coercion of women by men, right? We've seen this great movement of women standing up and being courageous, especially while Venus was in Libra. But now we've kind of seen some things turn on its head, right? Now President Trump is saying what Access Hollywood tape, that thing is not even real. I didn't, it's not true, it never happened, right? So now we're seeing some pushback against this great movement. But I think that December may be a difficult month in that regard. Um, with Venus and Scorpio, we may see some pushback. I think we're already seeing it. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out with Venus and Mars in each other's sign. I think that kind of represents a stalemate because they're not in aspect. But once Venus gets into Sagittarius on December 20th, the game is going to change, people, because now Venus is answering to Jupiter. Okay, and Venus is and Jupiter is in Libra, so there's going to be a nice mutual reception between Venus and Jupiter. And whatever pushback that we see during these first few weeks of December, by December 20th, Venus in Sagittarius and Jupiter in Libra in mutual reception is saying that um, we may see some serious litigation and consequences for the men who have been sexually assaulting women. And we may see women taking this thing to court. Right now, it's been mostly a Me Too kind of thing, and we've seen. I think there was a class action lawsuit with Uber the day that Venus and Jupiter conjuncted in Libra on November 13th. But I think that we're going to see more litigation, and we are going to see high-profile people mired in court cases, legal settlements, and litigation. We may, excuse me, even see a large class action lawsuit against a big corporation, excuse me, or someone prominent once Venus enters Sagittarius. Okay, but until then, Venus is in Scorpio, and we may see a stalemate, and a locking of horns between men and women over who's really telling the truth and whether or not there needs to be consequences and repercussions for the men who have engaged in assault, and what kind of consequences will there be for the women who have been standing up and being courageous. There may be some things going on behind the scene, and some women may pull back for fear of retaliation, and we may see some retaliation um, at this point. So let's move on. The first official event of December is December 2nd, and that is the full, no, December 3rd, and that is the full moon in Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus, the sun will be in Scorpio, and this is a full moon going back to the new moon in Scorpio that occurred on November 18th. All right, so full moon exalted in Taurus, a really nice moon, except for the fact that Venus is in Scorpio. So moon is exalted in Taurus, and what that means is that the tasks and agenda of the moon are lifted up, refined, and cultured. So the moon is the body, the functions of the body, eating, drinking, sleeping, all of the biological functions required for the body to thrive and live. But moon in Taurus exalts those things. So moon is serving the agenda of Venus. That means the body is serving the agenda of Venus, which is pleasure, refinement, culture, beauty, sensuality, all of the feel good things. So it's sleep, but on high thread count sheets. It's food, but not just for nourishment, but for the taste, for the fragrant, sensual experience, the texture on your tongue, the smell in your nose. It's the pairing of food. So this may be a week of indulgence, but it may be difficult to really do that with Venus and Scorpio. There are some other things that are making it difficult to fully let go and enjoy the pleasure that the moon in Taurus wants to bring us. So while we may want to indulge with our partners or have good times, we're concerned about the consequences with Venus and Scorpio. There's this air of self protection and this difficulty of really letting go in our bodies, because Venus and Scorpio is feeling like, what's the risk here? Fear of vulnerability. I wrote on Twitter yesterday that Venus and Scorpio is really telling us some things about what is our response to love, right? Are we open and accepting? What is our response to pleasure? Or do we have some self protective postures, both literally and figuratively, that we take because of past experiences or real threats, right? Venus and Scorpio, or any Scorpio planets, are teaching us how to assess a real threat from one that is a habituated response to past experiences. So let's move on to the second week of December. Mercury stations retrograde on December 4th, and that comes with it the usual warnings or just being careful about making large purchases, do your research. It's very easy to overlook the details when Mercury is in Sagittarius and when Mercury is retrograde. Any planet retrograde is not, oh my God, the sky is falling. What it really means is that the significations regarding that planet are emphasized. So the station of going retrograde or appearing of going backwards is the more malefic part of the cycle of Mercury retrograde. When Mercury stations direct, that's actually a really great time because the traditional texts say that it's like a sick man finally starting to feel better and get out of his bed. Whereas Mercury retrograde and stationing retrograde is kind of like, man, you just got sick and you're realizing you're about to be out for a little while. So just take that to mean that we need to be a little bit careful. We need to mind the details. Um, One of the remedies to this energy, I think, is to make lists, right? Make lists and check things off. Really be thorough because Mercury in Sagittarius is buy all the things, do all of the things now, right? But Mercury retrograde is telling us to slow down, make lists, try to be thorough. And if we're having trouble deciding what tasks to undertake or what's the most important things that we need to do right now, we need to do those things that align with our personal convictions and think about the meaning and purpose that we bring to those things. I talked about that more at the beginning of this video, so we can move on. The second of 3 Mercury Saturn conjunctions occur on Wednesday, December 6th. We talked about that already. Let's see, Sunday, December 10th. Mercury continues its retrograde in Scorpio, and it will remain in Scorpio until January 6th. Okay, so we have Mercury in Scorpio from December 10th until January 6th. But Mercury will be retrograde in Scorpio and station direct in Scorpio on December 22nd. So this is a whole nother thing happening. Mercury changing signs as it's retrograde. Mercury going from answering to Jupiter till answering to Mars. And again, anytime that we are answering to Mars, it becomes important to enforce our personal boundaries, to maintain emotional autonomy, to protect ourselves, and to further our own agenda. So we go from this sense of wanting to do it all to recoiling back into a sense of let me lay low for a second, um, let me lie deep. Remember Mercury in Scorpio, excuse me. I wrote about this when Mercury initially entered Scorpio on the first time on, when was that? November 1st. And I talked about Mercury and Scorpio being about using words to conceal, to obfuscate, and to, is it obfuscate? There we go. I keep saying that wrong. To hide things, right? So whenever Mercury's in Scorpio, it's all about what is not said. So whenever someone is coming out and saying something that appears to be really direct and to the point, really read between the lines because Mercury and Scorpio can really be about concealing the truth, not by overt lies, but by misdirection, um, or purposely making vague statements or purposely saying something in particular. For example, Trump and his cronies can say the Trump campaign did not collude with Russia to interfere with the election, right? But what can be hidden in that statement is that it was not the Trump campaign, it was someone else on the behalf of the Trump campaign. Say, for example, Cambridge Analytica, right? So, yes, technically, the Trump campaign itself did not collude with Russia, but it is very possible that some organization or company did its bidding on behalf of the Trump campaign, right? Think about that. So this applies for Mercury and Scorpio. And the other thing too is that on the flip side, Mercury and Scorpio can see things that aren't there. It can be looking for um, lies or feeling that people are being deceptive when in fact they aren't. But it is a, how do I say, a suspect time. All right, let's see, where are we? We were at Mercury and Scorpio on December 10th. Mercury is Cazimi the Sun on December 12th. I'll talk about that as we get to it. I don't want to waste too many details on that. Ooh, there's a Mercury Venus conjunction at 23 degrees Scorpio on um, December 15th. I think that that may be a time that we see a lot of pushback and retaliation from men about this movement of justice for women, because now Jupiter in Libra is answering to Venus in Scorpio. So I definitely think that there may be a not so coordinated effort, but at least an infectious movement of men and maybe sometimes women, because women can be agents of patriarchy and oppression too, right? But not so coordinated, but definitely infectious movement of men and women who are pushing back against this movement of justice for women. That's with that Mercury and Venus conjunction on December 15th. That same day, the Sun enters Sagittarius, okay? So this is the first time that the Sun is in Sagittarius while Saturn is in Sagittarius, and this is going to happen twice now and then again in December of 2018. By December 2019, Saturn will be in Capricorn, sidereally. Okay, so Sun in Sagittarius. The sign of Sagittarius is a fire sign, it's a dual bodied sign, and it's a mutable sign. Dual bodied often means multiples, so it may mean that someone's engaged in one or more projects. Sometimes Sun in Sagittarius can mean that you have two fathers. Maybe you have a father and a stepfather, a biological father and an adopted father, something like that. But in general, Sagittarius is a Jupiter ruled sign. There's two Jupiter ruled signs. The first is Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, and the second is Pisces, which is a water sign. So the Sagittarius side of Jupiter, the fiery side of Jupiter, is extroverted and it's outward. It's seeking, right? The sign Sagittarius is seeking passion. Anytime we have a fire signs are extroverted because they are seeking fuel for their fire. So Aries fire sign is seeking fuel in order to um, maintain a sense of drive on accomplishing, succeeding, dominating, and winning. You need fuel to keep winning. Leo is different because it's ruled by the sun. What does the sun need to keep itself going? It is a self perpetuating, persistent fire. So now it becomes for Leo about what the sun is illuminating. So the fuel for the sun is things to illuminate, right? The sun is consciousness and perception. And so consciousness and perception need a thing to animate and a world to illuminate. And then for Sagittarius, this is about the passion of belief, the fervor of zealousness, right? About feeling convicted, feeling something very strongly. Sagittarius likes to persuade, whether that's through teaching or preaching. And so Sagittarius is always seeking knowledge and experiences to add to its fire. But again, fire signs, it's so important that you think about what you are bringing to whatever it is that you're seeking. So for Sagittarius, you're seeking um, passion, right? The excitement, that fire in your belly that makes you feel alive, right? Convictions that you feel so strongly about, right? The kryptonite of Sagittarius is nihilism, this idea that nothing matters. But for Sagittarius, believes that everything matters. Right? It's looking for the meaning in things. But again, it's always important to remember for Sagittarius when you're growing and when you're maturing Sagittarius, whether that's Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, or Saturn, um, that it is about the meaning and purpose that you bring to whatever it is that you're doing. You'll get caught up in feeling like you lack direction and you lack a sense of purpose when you're constantly seeking outside of you. I do think that there is this sense of this journey that Sagittarius is on. And remember, we have Sagittarius somewhere in all of our charts, right? Um, Sagittarius house in general is where you may have strong convictions, where you may have a strong drive for finding meaning and purpose. So, for example, if you have Sagittarius on your 10th house, um, Virgo rising, your sense of reputation and what you do out in the world, this is where you have strong convictions, right? Oh no, I'm doing that wrong. I'm doing that wrong. Who has Sagittarius on the 10th house? Pisces. Pisces has Sagittarius on the 10th house. So you're on this longing journey in search for meaning and purpose, and you're in your work, right? You want to feel like you're doing something that matters, Pisces rising. But let me not go into that because then I'm going to start giving horoscopes for everybody and I ain't got time for that. All right. After the sun enters Sagittarius, there's a new moon in Sagittarius on Monday, December 18th. And that's a really important week because there's a lot of events happening in Sagittarius. Um, Whenever we have the new moon in a sign, it's kind of like an inauguration of that sign and a proper beginning in some way, shape, or form because there's now a cycle that begins. So the new moon at 2 degrees Sagittarius, I've talked extensively about Sagittarius in this video. You could go back to the beginning if you missed it. I don't want to waste time talking about that. But again, new moons are always about new beginnings. I may do a video or at least a Twitter thread around that time just reminding you that your new moon intention should occur once the moon is about 17 degrees away from the sun. Because if you want to do something that you want to grow, you want to do it when the moon is visible. Astrology is all about what you can see with your eye. It's all about light. So once we begin to see the moon emerge from the beams of the sun and we see that first sliver of a crescent moon, that's when you do your new moon intentions. And in Sagittarius, this is all about our personal convictions, about bringing purpose and meaning to um, what we do in our lives and bringing passion and discovering passion in what we do. I may give some horoscopes about where the Sagittarius house is for everyone closer to that. Venus enters Sagittarius on December 20th, and that's a good transit that lasts all the way until, when does that last until? January 13th. All right, so from December 20th until January 13th, Venus is in Sagittarius and it is in mutual reception with Jupiter. This is a juicy, this is almost as good as that Venus and Jupiter in Libra transit that we experienced in November, right? This is almost better than that transit because now Venus is in Jupiter's sign and Jupiter is in Venus's sign and they're in aspect by a sextile. Libra and Sagittarius are sextile. Libra's an air sign. Sagittarius is a fire sign. And when we have air and fire together, we have fuel for our passion. Okay? So, Venus in mutual reception with Jupiter in Libra from December 20th until January 13th. This is a big deal, guys. This is a really great highlight to our holiday season of Hanukkah and of Christmas, the New Year. Um, what is it? Three Kings, I think, that's celebrated in Puerto Rico, and all of these other holidays. Forgive me if I'm forgetting. But this is a really great transit. This is a great transit for women, for our movement of justice for women. And this is a great transit whenever we have mutual reception. Mutual reception means, hey, Venus is in Sagittarius. Venus does not live in Sagittarius, it lives in Taurus and Libra. But when Venus is in Sagittarius, it's answering to Jupiter. Well, guess what? Jupiter is in Venus's home. So I always say whenever we have planets in mutual reception and they're in aspect to each other by sextile, square, trine, opposition, what that means is that I am not at my house. I am at the house of someone I don't know. However, I don't know where everything is. So being in mutual reception means that Jupiter, in this case, which rules Venus, is in Libra, is in Venus, is in Libra, is in, what am I trying to say? Is in Venus's home, right? So this means that Venus likes to build relationships. Venus loves to bring people together. It loves to have fun, experience sex, joy, pleasure, and creativity, right? But when it is in Sagittarius, it has to consider Jupiter things. Well, guess what? Jupiter is in Libra, and Jupiter likes to expand the possibilities, to expand the vision of what we believe is possible, right? It's like saying, yeah, I know that you thought you were going to do this, but guess what? You didn't even know that you can do this, right? So Jupiter is in Venus's home, which means it has to consider Venus things, our convictions, our stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves and our lives and our culture and society and what's possible for us individually and collectively, this has to consider other people. It has to consider the social contract, the rules, the laws, what we agree to, right? So now Venus has got Jupiter on the phone and Jupiter's got Venus on the phone. It's like I know that I'm in a place that's not necessarily where I generally want to be, but I have access to the resources and expertise that I need to do my job. So Jupiter has Venus on the phone when Venus is in Sagittarius and Jupiter's in Libra. And Venus has Jupiter on the phone. So this is a really great thing. Whatever Jupiter has been promising for us, whether that means that there are helpful people who come along and share our vision for the world, who want to assist us in some projects, whether it means that we are thinking bigger about our careers, our relationships, our families, or whatever it may be. Um, excuse me. This is saying that we have some help, whether that's in the form of a significant woman or existing relationships. Maybe our partner is finally on board for something that we've wanted to do. Maybe someone comes along to help us, right? Venus is about relationships and people, right? We can do more together than we can separately, okay? Let's see what is next. The first conjunction of Sun and Saturn in Sagittarius occurs on December 21st. So this is really good. Um, I say really good because I just love talking about astrology and I just had a aha moment in my head. And what that aha moment is that anytime two planets come together for conjunction, it means that a new cycle is beginning. The old cycle is ending and the new cycle is beginning. So let us go back, shall we? Let us go back to 2016 and let us, come on, phone, do right. Let us find the previous Saturn Sun conjunction. This would have occurred in November or December of 2017 because Saturn was in Scorpio last year. So let's see. Sun in Scorpio on December 15th of November 2016, which means the next month, Sun conjunct Saturn in Scorpio on Friday, December 9th at 24 degrees of Scorpio. So Sun and Saturn conjuncted last year on December 9th, 2016, and that cycle is now ending December 21st of 17, a new cycle is beginning. Sun Saturn conjunctions illuminate for us the limitations of our own perception. Excuse me. Let's see. So this brings up a new cycle in the Saturn cycle, which is a 2-year thing. This time the Sun is starting a new cycle. Let's just skip over that because I've been talking about Saturn and Sagittarius this whole entire video. Mercury stations direct the next day. So as you can see, unlike November, where we really had some quiet weeks, the second and the fourth weeks of November, I think were relatively quiet. December, there's something happening every week. Um, in this, I guess, third or fourth week of December, the 18th through the 22nd, we've got a new moon, Venus in Sag, Sun conjunct Saturn in Sag, and Mercury direct in Scorpio. That is going to be a really busy week. But I think the most important thing about this month and that week is that this Sagittarius energy is new, and this is setting us up for 2018. Why? Because in 2018, the mutable signs in Sidereal are where the action is. Mutable and the cardinal signs. So we're getting the mutable side of this in December, and we're going to get the cardinal side of this in January. Meaning that the larger themes of 2018, as it refers to the configurations occurring in the mutable signs, we begin those cycles now, right? So, the Sun and Saturn conjunct in Sagittarius are hipping us to April. April's a really big month next year, and I hope to do some type of video or post or something giving a big picture overview of 2018. I don't know if I'll be able to do it this year or maybe in January. But I bring that up because in April of 2018, Saturn is stationing retrograde. There will be a confluence of planets in Pisces, all squaring and or conjunct Saturn. Mars will conjunct Saturn, then Venus, Sun, Mercury will all square Saturn as it's stationing retrograde in Sagittarius, and that's a big deal. So, mutable signs, whatever is occurring for you next year, especially in, I want to say, April and June, July of 2018, now the seeds are planting. Now the cycles are beginning, and the stories that will dominate those months are beginning now. Okay? Um, so that Mercury stations direct on December 22nd in Scorpio. We've talked about that already. Venus and Saturn then conjunct at 6 degrees of Sagittarius on Monday, December 25th. That's Christmas. That is going to be a very interesting day. I imagine there may be some very important political events that occur that dominate our Christmas. We won't be able to stop talking about them, and the news cycle will not be able to slow down. Mercury will have just stationed direct. Sun and Saturn conjunct at 6 degrees, Venus and Saturn conjunct at 6 degrees, which means that really at that new moon in Sagittarius on Monday, December 18th, Sun, Moon, Venus, Saturn, all in Sagittarius. Your Sagittarius house is lit, okay? And this is really important again because this is the beginning of cycles that begin to take shape and bring really important events next April 2018. Okay, what have we got here? I am at 49 minutes. I want to keep this under an hour. I think I will be able to do it because I think that that is it for December. Woo, woo, woo. All right, so this is going to be an exciting month of events. Women, don't lose courage. This Venus and Scorpio transit may make it look like we are reneging on the progress that we've made in our courage of stepping forward and seeking justice for things that have been perpetrated against us. But don't give up. This Mercury retrograde, Mercury is a trickster, okay? And by trickster, they like Mercury likes the whole sleight of hand thing, you know? And so things may not appear as they are whenever we are having a Mercury retrograde, which is what dominates this month. So, just, I want to say don't take it to heart. That's hard. Um, but just think of this within the bigger picture. It's just one particular cycle, or excuse me, portion of the cycle that will end, and all things are working together for our justice, right? Jupiter is still in Libra, and once Venus enters Sagittarius on the 20th, we will be able to make some more progress. I think that's all I have to say. Let me just take one more look at this month to see if there's any other big picture stuff I missed. Nope. So, big picture stuff, just in case you missed it, is the Mercury retrograde, which is in Sagittarius and in Scorpio. Um, uh, the multiple conjunctions of Mercury and Saturn in Sagittarius. The Sun, Venus, Saturn, all in Sagittarius by the middle to the end of the month, with the new moon in Sagittarius on December 18th, featuring Sun, Moon, Venus, and Saturn all in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius house is lit up, all answering to Jupiter in Libra. So listen, do you know what that means? Jupiter in Libra equals justice for women. So when we have all of those planets in Sagittarius, that means we are not going to stop talking about it. The conversation is going to get loud and no one is going to be able to ignore it. See, because the next time that we have planets in Sagittarius, Jupiter will be in Scorpio. So we have right now December to January with planets in Sagittarius, all answering to Jupiter in Libra, and then again in April ish, February, March, April, planets moving through Pisces. But the problem then is that there is no aspect between Pisces, and Libra. So right now, the sextile between Saturn, Sagittarius, and Libra is much more important and productive with regard to planets answering to that justice for women, Jupiter and Libra theme. And Jupiter and Libra is also justice in general. Remember, Libra is about our social contracts and the rules that we agree to. Um, how do we come together? And how do we cultivate culture and a sense of cohesion collectively, right? This is by rules, by law, protocol, um, and norms. And something that I've reiterated over, but I want to share in this video just so it's on the record, is that we need more than norms and protocol. We need codification and legislative action to solidify those things that have just been expected, or people conforming, right? Because you have conforming where the consequences are shame and social outcasting. But then when you have laws, there are legal remedies and enforceable consequences that deter certain behaviors and support others. I'm speaking specifically about our political norms and the need for codification and legislation to solidify and encapsulate those things that we have taken for granted, thinking that shame or conformism, these are all Libra Venus words, would be enough to maintain a certain way of doing things. But now we know we need laws. We need a consensus that is codified. This is Jupiter in Libra. All right. I think that is all I have for you. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your November. I hope you're excited about December. And again, in my weekly forecast that I do on Twitter, in threads, you will get more details about how it applies to what's going on in the moment and how you may apply it to your life. I hope you guys have an awesome week and an awesome month and an awesome holiday season. All right. And now I'm trying to figure out how to stop this video. Oh, like this.